Every week in the NFL, coaches are looking for key matchups that they can take advantage of. They're looking at ways they can get their best players in cool matchups to win against the opposing team. And in this game, there's key matchups for both teams that the 49ers are going to have to make sure they either eliminate the key matchups that are going to work for the Jets or take advantage of the key matchups that are going to work in their favor. We're going to talk about all those key matchups and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Time to talk about key matchups, and this is where it gets a lot of fun. I love this part of football is finding out where exactly teams are going to take advantage of the other. And a lot of times it's not really that difficult to figure out. You're going to find players that you can attack. You're going to find a certain particular part of the scheme you can attack. So if you're looking for an offensive perspective, you're looking at the defense and you're saying, okay, where can I get Christian McCaffrey, for instance, matched up against a certain linebacker? Or where can I get George Kittle matched up against a certain safety? How can I get a certain formation and look to really help me have the most success? And for the defense, they're looking at how can I mitigate that? How can I make sure that I don't allow these matchups that the offense wants to get done to get done? How can I keep Christian McCaffrey not lined up against that linebacker? Or how can I stop George Kittle from getting one-on-one with Chuck Clark down the field? These are all things that the defensive and offensive coordinators and staff are working on all the time. But whenever you come into a game, there's definitely key matchups that are pretty easy to recognize. Things you want to get established, things you want to get done, they're going to help your football team. For some instances, it's just taking advantage of the opposing team's weakness. And for others, it's finding balance or it's finding a way to help your offense or defense be able to be the best possible that it can be. So it's always interesting when you get into these. And sometimes matchups are as obvious and they're just so easy to find out. And then sometimes they're a little bit more difficult to see. And those are the ones that are a lot of fun that you can say, I didn't realize that that was going to be a mismatch, or I didn't realize you could take advantage of this. And that's where you start having some real benefits to doing your film work and doing your study. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this episode. I always look forward to talking about key matchups and matchups that can go one way or the other. Because the truth is, 49ers have a lot of talent on offense and defense. And guess what? The Jets have a lot of talent on offense and defense. And it's all about how can Nathaniel Hackett get his offensive players in the best positions to be successful, and how can Kyle Shanahan. And on the same regard, you got Nick Sorensen going into his first game calling defense. He's got to make sure his defense is in the right spots at the right time with the right philosophy. And all the while, he's got to make sure he can handle Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to have a lot of fun in this episode. I'm really looking forward to get into the key matchups of this game. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our 200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for a chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. And when you look at these two teams are going to have some similarities when it comes to defense, that is for sure. Robert Saleh's time in San Francisco and the defensive philosophy that he believes in is echoed through the Jets organization. Even though Coach Jeff Ulbrich calls defense, make no mistake, this is Robert Saleh's defense. This is exactly the concepts and principles that he wants to run. And Ulbrich does a good job as defensive coordinator. And when it comes to the 49ers, they're running a variation of the Robert Saleh defense, now led by Nick Sorensen, but going back to what they did under D'Amico Ryan. So philosophies are going to be somewhat similar. Coverages are going to be somewhat similar. And so that means offensive game plans and attacking those should be somewhat similar. For Kyle Shanahan, we know the weapons that he has. You have Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings. You don't lack talent when it comes to offense. You look at the Jets, they don't either. They bring in Mike Williams to go with Garrett Wilson. They've got Breece Hall running the football. They got Conklin to catch the ball from the tight end spot. Some talent over on the offensive side for the Jets. All the while, we got two quarterbacks that can absolutely pull the trigger. Brock Purdy, an MVP candidate last year. Aaron Rodgers has been MVP in his career, that's for sure. And he's won a Super Bowl back in 2008. So you've got talented rosters that know exactly what they have to do to take advantage of the opposing team. I think the key point of this game right away is going to be the run game. And it's really this simple. The 49ers and Jets need to run the ball against each other. So let's look at it from this perspective. It's run game versus run defense, and it's for both matchups. Both teams have to play good run defense if they want to be successful, and they have to run the ball successfully on offense if they want to be successfully. And here's why. Both gave up 4.1 yards per carry in 2023. So both of them allowed over 4 yards a carry. That's not great defense when it comes to stopping the run. We've seen the 49ers leaking oil when it came to the playoffs, especially against Detroit. Leaking oil in the run game, not able to stop the outside plays. Those were definitely problems for the 49ers in that matchup. Now, against Kansas City, they did a lot better. And so we don't know if they fixed it, but what we do know is with the new philosophy, they're going to make it a point to stop the Jets' running game. But the Jets want to get the running game going with Breece Hall. If you're able to run the ball against the 49ers defense, you keep yourself ahead of the sticks, number one. Number two, you're going to somewhat wear that defense down and make it a little bit easier for Aaron Rodgers. Now, one of the differing things between the two offenses, the 49ers run the football close to 49% of the time, and then they will use play action off of that with great success. With the Jets and Nathaniel Hackett's offense, they don't run a lot of play action. So even though they want to establish a running game, it's not to tie things together so that way you can have a successful pass game off of the run game. It is just to have a successful running game and to limit some of the pressure you're able to get on third and long and to kind of wear you down. So different philosophy as far as why you're running the football successfully, but both have to run the football successfully. Now, when you look at the Jets defense last year, they gave up 124 yards per game on the ground. That's not great. The 49ers ran for 140 yards per game on the ground, which was one of the top three in the NFL. Just to give you an example of how successful the 49ers run game was last year with Christian McCaffrey and others. And of course, Jordan Mason's going to get some carries in this game as well. So you've got a defense that gave up a lot of yards last year, even though they have two very good linebackers. And they built the defense a little bit with more defensive tackles. They brought some guys in. But you've got an offense for the 49ers that's very successful running the football. So this is one of those that you look and it's too obvious, right? You've got one defense that struggled to stop the run. And I do think that they got a lot more carries against them because the offense that they had last year was anemic. Zach Wilson in that offense and other quarterbacks as well just weren't able to consistently make plays for that offense. And so other opposing teams were getting up and then they were running the football a lot. And so giving up 124 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, not great. And so the 49ers definitely need to take advantage of that defense and that defensive line. They've got a good linebacker group. But, CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams, they're great. But what are you going to do, when you're going against this really good 49ers offense and you don't have the guys that can stop it up front? And the reason I'm saying that is they brought in some guys to be able to stop the run potentially. And one of those guys is Javon Kinlaw. And we know Quinnen Williams is absolutely fantastic. He's been tremendous. And Quinnen Williams is going to help you a lot in this football game. He's going against Aaron Banks, and Banks is coming off the surgery on his pinky. He's been limited in practice, but expected to be full go when the game comes. But he struggles a little bit with lateral quickness, which could be a problem against Quinnen Williams. But then they bring in Javon Kinlaw, and Kinlaw is very familiar for 49er fans and very familiar his game. And early on in his career, when he first came in as a rookie, he was a good run stopper. And that was one of the reasons the 49ers drafted him in 2020 is they saw a player that potentially could help them stop the run. Buckner had been traded to the Colts, and they brought in Javon Kinlaw to help stop the run and be a more physical force than Buckner was in the run game. And they were hoping that he would be able to rush the passer with a little bit of upside. Never was going to reach Buckner's level, but they were hoping the give and take, better against the run, would balance things out, especially with Nick Bosa coming on the scene and others. But Kinlaw hasn't been a good run defender in his NFL career. He has posted grades below 47 in each of his 4 seasons, including below 37 in his last 2. So this is a guy that's not a good run defender and then getting worse as his career develops. Now, last year he rushed the passer at a high level, but he could not stop the run. One of the problems with Javon Kinlaw that 49er fans are well aware of is he sometimes gets too high when he plays. He's a big, tall man, big physical man, and sometimes he gets elevated. And when that happens, offensive linemen are able to get under him and move him. Now, one of the advantages that Kinlaw is going to have in this game is the 49ers don't run a lot of duo concepts. So he's not going to face a ton of double teams. He's going to face a lot of zone scheme where they're going to work off him and work the second level. So that might benefit him a little bit. He is still an athletically big, gifted man, and so he could potentially make some plays. The problem is you've got Solomon Thomas as well, who's going to be a rotational piece behind Quinnen Williams, and he has been below 50% against the run when playing defensive tackle. When he plays D-end, he plays it at a higher level. When he plays defensive tackle, it's a struggle to stop the run. So a defense that struggled to stop the run last year has 2 defensive tackles behind Quinnen Williams that don't exactly stop the run at a high level. 49ers averaged 4.8 yards per carry on the ground last year, with Christian McCaffrey handling most of those carries. I think this is going to be one of the key matchups in this football game is the 49ers establishing a run game against this Jets defense. That will make everything easier because it's no real hidden thing here that the 49ers have Colt McKivitz at right tackle who struggles when it comes to pass protection, and they have Jake Brendel at center who can't anchor very well, and they have Aaron Banks who struggles with lateral quickness. We know the deficiencies of the 49ers offensive line, but if you can establish a run game, those deficiencies are somewhat masked. Because if you can get into situations where you get third and short is 3rd and 3 and below, you can get into those situations, then the Jets defenders aren't able to just come after you and get after your quarterback. You can get rid of the football quickly, get the ball out. And then also, you don't have to have traditional sets where Colt McKivitz has to plan on blocking for 3.5, 4 seconds, where you don't have to worry about Jake Brendel getting walked back by Kinlaw or Quinnen Williams into your quarterback and not being able to hold serve there. So it's very important and vital for the 49ers to establish a running game, because what comes off of that running game for this offense is so important. After that, that's when they start tying things together. Then they start running play action. And if you're effective in the run game, when you run play action, that will draw those linebackers up to stop the run. When they do, that leaves the void in the middle of the field for the 49ers to run their crossers to Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. And that's where those guys live and have success. And what have we talked about a little bit, and we'll get more into it, is the 49ers need to take advantage of the Jets safeties. It's not that the Jets safeties are bad, but when you're looking at this football team, that's one of the weaknesses compared to the corners who are absolutely fantastic and the linebackers who are really good. And so taking advantage of those safeties is going to be important. Now, we expect for the Jets to run a few different coverages in this game. Cover 3, cover 4, some cover 1 with man press principles on the outside. And those things can leave you susceptible to things over the middle. So Brock Purdy, if he's able to decipher what he's looking at, can find those guys over the middle. So establishing the run game will make those linebackers engage, and it will start opening those holes over the middle of the field where we know the 49ers want to live. That's one of the reasons it's so important to get that going. Also, you can also start getting some plays where you get Brock Purdy out of the pocket, where you get him on rolls, where he can go out and run some flood pass plays, and get a little bit of take advantage of some of the levels concepts. Get George Kittle out on the move outside, on the outside, get him the ball. So there are some things now that the 49ers can take advantage of, and Robert Saleh's defense and Nick Sorensen's defense are susceptible to boot passes. So getting that movement, getting those defenders being aggressive in the run game allows you to come out the other side and get some open looks for Brock Purdy where he doesn't have to worry about pressure. And guess what that does? Take the pressure off the offensive line. The offensive line is not in traditional pass sets, and they're able to run play action. That means they're moving. That means they're giving a different disguise. That keeps them from being on an island one-on-one with good pass rushers. So that's why the 49ers have to establish a run game in this matchup. But the same thing goes for the New York Jets. They need to establish a run game as well, because if they don't, the 49ers are going to make them one-dimensional. And if you make them one-dimensional and you know that the pass is coming, then you could start giving help to other offensive players. If you want to eliminate Garrett Wilson, you can do that if you can stop the run, because then linebackers can give help as far as coverage goes. That's how you can start bracketing some of these guys. You take away something underneath, you keep the corner over the top, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. Plus, the defensive line for the 49ers is able to pin their ears back and go. And if there's one strength of the 49ers, it is pass rush. When you look at the interior defensive line, Malik Collins, they brought in to replace Eric Armstead. He's not as good a pass rusher as Eric Armstead, and I don't know if he's as good a run stopper as Eric Armstead, but he is an effective pass rusher. And so when you get into third and long situations, if the 49ers are able to let their guys, Leonard Floyd, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, and Malik Collins, get after the quarterback, that could be bad for Aaron Rodgers, because even though we've got a new look offensive line for the Jets, and it's a lot better. I mean, we got to give him credit for it. Tyron Smith, he's good. John Simpson comes over from Baltimore. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch him versus Hargrave. Joe Tippmann, the center, very talented. Vera Tucker, when healthy, very good. And then Morgan Moses on the outside. Those guys are a good offensive line. But when you get 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 8 against Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, and those guys on the inside, Hargrave, one of the best interior pass rushers in the league, that's when you run into issues. But if it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, those are opportunities for Aaron Rodgers to be able to get rid of the football quickly and get the ball out into his playmakers' hands and let them get the first down. So effectiveness when it comes to getting the ball out is going to be key. And so the 49ers know they have to stop the run. Their goal in every single game is to make teams one-dimensional. Now, one of the things that Coach Nick Sorensen is going to do this year that he really wants to have in place that's different from what Steve Wilks did is he wants to work this defense from the inside out. So they stop the run. That's important. That's the number one goal, is to stop the run. Number 2 is to take away things over the middle of the field. So you don't want to let plays happen that are big plays over the middle of the field, and that was an issue for the 49ers defense last season. They wanted everything on the outside forced in. So they protected the outside, and they forced everything into the middle of the field. 49ers defense this year is going to do it opposite. They want to force it outside and make for long throws. Now, we know Aaron Rodgers can make those throws, but the 49ers have probably their best secondary that they've had since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been in San Francisco, which are Various Ward and Diamond Lenore on the outside, except in this game, they're probably going to run a ton of nickel because of the personnel groupings the Jets are going to run. The Jets don't run a lot of heavy sets, which are 12, 21, and 22 personnel. They run a lot of 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers and 1 running back. 3 wide receivers. Yeah, there we go. We got it. And so they want to make sure they take advantage of the spreading it out and taking advantage of you that way. So the 49ers are going to have Isaac Yedem on the field with Diamond Lenore and Charvarius Ward. This is also the formation they want to run the ball the most out of. So you're going to have your nickel corners set to get in there and make tackles, and Diamond Lenore does a great job at that. But if they can get a run game going with Breece Hall, and they can start taking the pressure off of this offensive line, that's when they'll apply the pressure to the 49ers defense. That's when they can start trying to take advantage of safety like George Odom or taking advantage of Devondre Campbell in coverage. Those are going to be goals for the New York Jets that the 49ers have to avoid. And it starts with stopping the run on early downs. It is one of the most important things to do in this football game. So both teams are looking to get the run game going, and both teams are looking to stop the run. So that's going to be one of the keys. Something to watch as far as stopping the run is 49ers' new defensive tackle, Jordan Elliott, was pretty good. He had a 40% win rate last year in run play. So 40% run stop rate is really good. That was top 6 in the league when it comes to run blocking win rate. Not bad. So that's definitely something the 49ers need him to do, is take advantage of that. Now, one concern I have for the 49ers, and I think that most teams are going to try to take advantage of the 49ers in this category, is going to be the Sam linebacker. Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles expects to be the starter. I think that Curtis Robinson's in the mix, but right now, according to the unofficial depth chart released by 49ers media, it's going to be Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. And I think that's a advantage for the Jets. But here's the problem. We just talked about them running a ton of 11 personnel. If you're running 11 personnel, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles isn't on the field. That's when Diablo Lenore and Isaac Yedem are on the field together. So in that case, you pretty much take the 49ers' biggest weakness right out the field. So would the Jets decide that, hey, it's beneficial for us to run more 12, 21, or 22 personnel, get a heavy set out there, an extra tight end, an extra running back, and just make sure you can take advantage of getting DFF out on the field and then finding not just matchups in the run game, but in the passing game as well. Because if they run at DFF, that's going to be advantage for the Jets. He just struggles when it comes to stopping the run. It's interesting because he's really good in pass coverage, which means he should be a will linebacker. The problem is they already have a will linebacker in Devondre Campbell. So you're putting a guy with will linebacker skills out there on obvious rundowns, and he's not good at stopping the run. So if they do load up with 2 tight ends and they get DFF on the field, expect them to run outside zone plays directly at Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles to take advantage of him. Also, if they can get him in coverage, I do think they have an advantage of Breece Hall versus DFF. So those types of things are concerning for the 49ers. Now, hopefully the Jets, if you're a 49er fan, hopefully the Jets just ignore that possibility and stick with their 11 personnel, because that's what Aaron Rodgers feels more comfortable in. Then you don't have to worry about DFF and those snaps. If his snaps stay to 10, 15% in this game, 49ers are likely to have more success on defense than if it gets up there to 20 to 25%, where they can take advantage of the run game with Breece Hall. So that's something to really watch in this game. Could be a huge advantage for the Jets if they're able to take advantage of DFF being on the field. Now, it's not different from what the 49ers have. We talked about Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley, who are absolutely fantastic. But when you look at the third linebacker, it's Jamian Sherwood. And I think this is where the 49ers can find an advantage for Christian McCaffrey. Number one, the 49ers do run a ton of 21, 12, and 22 personnel. They do go heavy sets because they got Kyle Juszczyk. They've got George Kittle and Eric Saubert to be able to not just help in the run game as far as blocking, but can also be effective pass catchers, which help you find mismatches. We talked about it's going to be hard against the top 2 linebackers. They're really good. They're good in covers. They're good at stopping the run. But when you look at Jamian Sherwood, this is an opportunity. And how do you get a matchup on Sherwood with McCaffrey or with Kittle? Well, you use formation shifts and you use motions. Late motions could really be beneficial for the 49ers to find that matchup they're looking for, to find a guy that they can take advantage of, and not just the run game, but the pass game as well. You're always looking for matchups for McCaffrey because he's so dynamic out of the backfield. And every single week, we find linebacker groups that just aren't able to handle him. It's tough for guys like Fred Warner and Devondre Campbell at practice to man up Christian McCaffrey or to hang with him, let alone somebody on an opposing team who's not used to seeing him day in and day out and the way that he runs his routes and the technique he goes with. So Kyle Shanahan's going to look for ways to get his heavy personnel, get Sherwood out there, and attack him. They're going to run at him, and they're also going to throw the ball at him by finding ways to motion McCaffrey late to get the look they're looking for. And we know that Kyle Shanahan likes to use motions and formation shifts to reveal coverages, anyways. So it's a necessary part of this 49ers offense to get guys moving. And when you get people moving, then that's when you start revealing things. But one of the things that Kyle Shanahan has often said when talking about why he runs so much motion is he noticed that every time you ran motion, more than one person had to move. Now, of course, if they're in man coverage, one guy's going to move. But when you run motion with one guy, you might cause 7 or 8 guys to move as they have to bump through the defense, adjust, switch to the strength call. There's a lot of things that change just from a simple motion. But one of those things you can also do is find a matchup that works for you. So I think Christian McCaffrey in those 21, 22, and 12 personnel groupings against Jamie and Sherwood could be advantage for the 49ers. So the same way the Jets can take advantage of DFF, the 49ers can take advantage of Jamie and Sherwood. So as you're seeing, game plan wise, it's not too crazy different from 49ers versus Jets and how they're going to attack. You have similar schemes, similar personnel thought processes, and so you get similar outcomes on how you're trying to attack. Who can do it the best? Talked about Christian McCaffrey, but also George Kittle. And I mentioned that I was going to talk about the safeties a little bit. Tony Adams and Chuck Clark against George Kittle. Now, I don't think there's going to be a ton of times where George Kittle is locked up man-to-man with these two guys. There are opportunities. In those cases, look for George Kittle early and often. But even in zone coverage, just the way he's able to run his routes and create a little bit of separation could be something the 49ers could take advantage of. So Kittle versus the safeties. And shoot, if you can get a nice situation where you get him versus Sherwood, that's advantage 49ers too. I think this could be a big game for George Kittle. I think the matchups kind of suit him. You look at some of the matchups on the outside that aren't so good for the 49ers, right? You're going to have an absolute battle with Sauce Gardner and Brandon Ayuk. That one's going to be, get your popcorn ready. That's a main event. Then you look over and you got DJ Reed and you got Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo could win sometimes using his physicality, using his strength. And I think DJ Reed will be on him. I think they'll have a nice matchup. Then you've got Jawan in the slot against Michael Carter. That's going to be impressive. So cornerback versus wide receivers, they're going to get each other. Sometimes the corners are going to win. Sometimes the receivers are going to win. You don't see that with George Kittle. It should be advantage George Kittle. And if they want to take Michael Carter and put him on George Kittle, then that means you're getting Jawan Jennings on one of those other guys. And Jawan Jennings, though he's not the fastest receiver, he is one of the guys that separates like no other. He creates separation using just his God-given ability to get in and out of breaks when it comes to running his route. So that's the thing. Depending on how they effectively try to take away Kittle, could be an advantage for Jawan Jennings. So that's going to be something to watch in this matchup. But yeah, I like George Kittle in this game. I like him being able to go against Tony Adams and Chuck Clark. I think those are really good matchups for the 49ers. Another matchup that the 49ers are going to have to be concerned with on defense is going to be Garrett Wilson. And we talked about Mike Williams just for a second. So Mike Williams is going to try to take the top off. We know he's going to be on a pitch count. He's coming off an injury, and so he's not going to be out there every snap. But his vertical threat is still something the 49ers have to account for. The guy can get upfield in a hurry, and that creates separation for the other guys underneath, including Garrett Wilson, who, if he gets the ball in his hands in space, is dynamic and can make plays. So I expect the 49ers to come out and run their base defense at first. They're going to come out there and they're going to try to play team defense and just limit the effectiveness the normal way they would. But when you get into third and long situations, and I talked about this a little bit with the pass rush, but when you get into third and long situations, that's where we know Aaron Rodgers likes to look for his number one target. When he was in Green Bay, he did it all the time with Devontae Adams. And he will probably do the same thing with Garrett Wilson. So the 49ers are going to look to take him away. So that could be a safety over the top, giving help there. That way your corner underneath can play a little bit tighter and a little bit more physical, and you have a shot there. They could also send linebacker over and kind of get some bracket coverage. There's a lot of things you can do to try to take Garrett Wilson away. And I think that's what the 49ers will do from time to time. They're going to try to kind of mitigate his effectiveness, but they don't want to leave the other guys open either, right? They don't want to allow Malachi Corley to get the football in space. They don't want to allow Mike Williams the whole shot plays down the field. They don't want to allow Conklin to get the ball up the seam. So it's going to be a team defensive effect, But when the time is right, they're going to have to make sure they lock up and take away Garrett Wilson and don't allow him to get big third down catches. That's going to be pivotal for this 49ers defense, is getting off the field on third down. So you're going to see some interesting things for the 49ers, I think, pre-snap. They're going to give some looks. They're going to show blitzes. They're going to bail at times. Sometimes they're going to come after Rodgers. They want him to feel uncomfortable. And this will be the Brandon Staley effect. Brandon Staley's coming in, and that has been one of his number one goals with this defense, is helping them tie things together with pre-snap looks to post-snap play. And so they're going to show you one thing and do another. And they want to keep this thing tied together. Last year, they lost that. The defensive line and linebackers were not tied to the secondary effectively, and they left holes in the defense, not just in the run game, but in the passing game as well. So 49ers are going to have to look to take advantage of that. So the key matchups in this game have to be the run game for both teams. 49ers are trying to get Christian McCaffrey established and make sure he can take advantage of it. And they're trying to get Breece Hall going, the Jets. If whoever establishes the run is going to have a lot of success on offense. And then when it comes to finding key matchups, both teams are going to try to take advantage of the Sam backer for the opposing team, getting matchups for their running back, running at those guys, and taking advantage of them not being as talented as the other linebackers on the team. So those are going to be keys. The 49ers definitely got to figure out how to get George Kittle involved in this offense. So it's going to be a fun matchup. I'm looking forward to it. Monday night, Robert Saleh, a lot of respect for him and Jeff Ulbrich and that coaching staff, and a lot of respect for what the 49ers are going to plan on doing. But it's going to be a big game, and there's going to be a lot of talent out there on the field. How it all shakes out, who knows as of right now. But if you want to know what my game prediction is going to be, join me for the game preview show. That's going to come out tomorrow, and I'm going to give my game prediction. I do it every single week in the game preview show. I'll give the prediction of what I think the score is going to be. It's always a lot of fun to go through the matchups, talk about the coaches, and we get a little bit deeper when it comes to the game preview show. So I hope you guys will all join me for that. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. 49ers Cutback on Believe. If you have the opportunity, give it a 5-star rating. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.